Hey, what's up you guys? As promised, I was going to do a review on my 50mm Youngnou, I hope that's in focus, lens. I hope you can tell that video quality is much better. I had it on 2500 ISO or something, so you had all this noise and all this crazy stuff. That goes back to one of the points I brought up in the last video about knowing your equipment and kind of having an idea of what's going on with it, so that you don't make the mistakes that I obviously made in my 5 mistakes that I made as a beginning photographer. So yeah, also I don't have the googly eyes because I put my ring light up higher as someone had suggested to me, and the audio should be better because I'm not in autofocus, so it's not focusing, and I brought the f-stop up. But yeah, so this is my 50mm AFS f1.8 lens. Again, it is Yongnuo, I don't know how to pronounce that. But yeah, it has been a fantastic lens. I've used it professionally now for almost 2 years. Yeah, it's been about 2 years. I picked this one up for $69. I think they go for $72 on Amazon for Nikon. I'll link that in the bottom. And then it's $41.98 for Canon. I don't know why there's a price difference. The reviews are pretty much the same. Everyone really likes it. It does feel a little cheap. It's a plastic case. But so far it's survived 2 drops, as well as being carried around in my bag to camping trips and all that stuff. It also came with cleaning materials, a little blow gun and a little brush and a lint-free cloth, but as any photographer knows, a lint-free cloth is never actually lint-free. Yeah, so I wanted to go over some photos that I've actually taken with this lens, as well as actually go out with my favorite model, which is my dog, and take some photos with it live for you. Well, it won't be live for you, it'll be recorded, but you'll see me taking the photo and then with the lens, and then I will run it through my editor. I won't heavily edit, I'll just adjust the contrast, bring the color up, and make it nice and bright, and then show it to you how sharp it is, how much you get the fuzzies in the background. I don't remember the actual word for the fuzzies when you're using a really low f-stop. Again, I will do a whole video on f-stop because f-stop is important. And I will use this trusty camera for that video. I hope you can see it. Let me show you. It's my favorite. Look at it. That is a Birkin James 4x5 large format camera. We'll do a whole video on large format photography, kind of the history of it. But yeah, before that video, I will definitely do an f-stop video. I've got some big shoots coming up next week. I don't remember how many. There's a couple. One will be doing UV light with UV paint and a black light. That'll come out really cool. I'll kind of go over my lighting ideas with that with you. And then I've got some engagement photos. But yeah, so back on to this lens. It's a 50mm, but in my crop sensor camera, I think it's 1.5 difference with a Nikon or 1.6 with a Canon. It shoots more like an 80 or an 85mm lens, which is fantastic for portraits. It is definitely one of my favorite portrait lenses that I have. It is a prime lens, which means it does not zoom in or out. It's just 50mm. You get a nice, crisp, clean shot with it. Like I said again, it is very fast, which means, I guess I'll kind of go into this. So f1.8 is a really wide open with the lens, aperture. You can kind of see the aperture, how it would open up in there, and that's basically it. Lets how much light through. So the more light you have in, the faster you can shoot, your shutter speed depending on your ISO and all that, but basically it's the more light you let in with that, the less light you have to let in with shutter speed. But what you lose with that is focus. So with the big camera to my left, sorry, I had to think about that. The big camera to my left, the f5.6 is the lowest that lens is, or the largest that lens gets, and it's razor thin. It's like the nose will be in focus and the ears will be out of focus. With this one at 1.6, the images are a bit soft, but that's pretty normal when you're shooting at that speed. I think the sharpest images with this one is around the f3.5, I believe, or even f5.6 is really, really sharp, but you don't get that really cool fuzzies in the background. Again, I don't know the word for it, but you can really see it in the light. I'll show an example here. So this photo right here is actually a photo of Arianna. I've worked with Arianna for about 2 years. We met each other in a photography class, actually. I highly recommend local community colleges. That's the word I'm looking for. It's been a long day. I do recommend local community colleges for their photography classes, but that's where I met Arianna. Arianna is probably one of the most featured models in my portfolio, and that's one thing, is in my portfolio you're going to see a lot of familiar faces, and a lot of familiar faces that you'll see in my videos, and that's because I don't publish clients' work. They come to me and they pay me to take photos of them, and those photos become theirs. I don't publish that in my portfolio. I actually go out and find a model to work with for my portfolio. So there's several models I do work with, but this one is Arianna. We shot this downtown at the Ames campus in Loveland, and as you can see, she is right front and center. Her eyes are crystal clear, no glare on her glasses, or at least not too much glare, not like mine in the last video. And the background is completely blurred out, and that was a really low f-stop. I believe we were shooting at 1.8, probably 200 ISO. I'll have to actually check this, the camera settings on the photo settings. That's where I'm looking for. But yeah, so, and then this photo here is Jessica. Jessica Thompson's another model I work with, pretty normal. We shot this one last Christmas. We've been shooting together for about a year now. We do a lot of really artistic and fantasy shoots together. As you can see, the Christmas lights in the background on this one, and I did feature this photo on the last one. This one is desaturized because I saved it in a lower resolution. But yeah, so this one is a Jessica, and as you can see, even the Christmas tree right behind her, you can see the kind of blur of the Christmas lights, and that's a great example of how to make your photos pop with a lower f-stop. And again, this lens, the 50mm Youngnou, I still can't say it. I think I've said it different every single time I've said it in the video, has worked wonderful for that. I do plan on eventually upgrading to a Nikon. Nikon is about $100 to $135, depending on where you find it, for an AFS 50mm lens. It also is a f1.8, and then the really high-end ones actually go all the way down to like f1.4. I think I saw one like f1.2, but I don't know if that was actually a lens or kind of like I didn't know if that was a commercial lens or an experimental kind of thing. Yeah, I absolutely do recommend this lens for a beginner photographer. I will be upgrading eventually, probably in the next 6 months to a year, and I'll do a full review on the Nikon and how it actually stands up against the Youngnou, best bang for your buck kind of thing. But again, it's 50mm, which on a crop censored lens is 80 to 85mm, depending on which system. I think Nikon is 1.5 times 1.5, and then your Canon is times 1.8, and I will do a whole video on crop sensors versus full frame sensors. So I believe the next part of this video is we're gonna go outside, which will be tomorrow morning for me and the snap of my finger for you, and we're gonna go shoot with my favorite model, Sophia. And here we are. It's 7 a.m. on this Saturday morning. Yeah, I'm gonna edit this tonight and upload it. So, can you see me? No, see, that's the problem, is it's adjusting to the light behind me, and that's an issue that manual mode can definitely fix. But here we have it, Youngnou on my D5300. Again, it is a plastic lens, or the outside is plastic. It's a much lighter lens. Very, very nice when you're carrying it around hiking, or you're camping, or anything along those lines. I have my favorite model here today. Her name is Sophie. It's actually my little blue healer mix. Let's see if we can get a video of her. So, little Sophie. Sit. Good girl. So actually, I'm going to take some photos with Sophie. You can get an idea of the sharpness and everything. I'm going to bring the camera down because what was one of the rules? Shoot at eye level, unless you can get some cool shots. Now, I did come out earlier today and kind of get some shots of her. I'll share those real quick. As you can see, her eyes are pretty sharp, but the background is definitely blurry. I was shooting at 1.8. It was 600 ISO. Probably, I think it was 60 speed, 1/60th. Come here. All right, Sophie, sit. Good girl. Sit pretty. Sit pretty. Hey. Sit. Nope. Back up. Sit. And you can see the blurriness in the background. Lay down. Sit. Sit. Shake. Yeah, another fantastic little photo. Give me pretty eyes. Pretty eyes, Sophie. Hey, nope. Sit. Pretty eyes. Pretty eyes. Hey. Boom, there you go. Good girl. Good girl. So I kind of want to use this tree as an example of, I looked up the word last night. It's called bokeh. I'll put the spelling up. But yeah, it's called bokeh, and that's the fuzziness or the blurriness you get in the background of your images when you're shooting with a really low number f-stop or wide open lens such as that. So I'm going to take some photos of the tree at 1.8 and you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like. So it's not just the background of the image. It's whatever your focus point is on will be in focus, and anything in the foreground or the background will have that blurriness to it. Now the importance of this, and especially with this lens in particular, being at 1.8, is it really brings the model to the forefront, no matter where the model is in the shot, or the client if you're shooting a paid shoot. It brings them to the forefront of the images, no matter where they're at in the image itself. And that's very important when you're shooting with a model or a client, and this lens does a fantastic job of doing that. Hey, we're back inside now. We're not at the studio, actually. I didn't have time to make it to the studio this week, so actually we shot last night, the first part of this video, in my basement, and then we went in my backyard this morning, and we're back here in the basement. One last thing I wanted to show you is one last photo I've taken with this camera. The model, her name is Valerie Hastings. I've worked with her for a few years now. Absolute natural in front of the camera. I'll go ahead and show my example. So Valerie, again, I've been working with her for a little while. She's a natural, and this lens absolutely captures her eyes perfectly. And that's one thing I've noticed about this lens, is if you're on the focal point on the eyes, this lens is super sharp. Again, f1.8, that real high aperture, it's a little soft. It is, and that's what I've noticed with all lenses I've worked. When you're working in your maximums, your f16, sorry, is the maximum or the minimum aperture, and the f1.8 is the minimum aperture or maximum aperture with this lens. And when you're working at those extremes, your images can be a little bit soft. The sweet spot for this one is about f3. I think it's 3.4 to 5.6. That's your real sweet spot with this lens. So overall, I would say that I would give the lens probably 7 out of 10 is how I would rate it, because again, it feels a little cheap. It doesn't feel like it would hold up to a fall from a high distance or anything like that. But best bang for your buck. It's $72 for the Nikon version. It's $42 for the Canon version. Again, I don't know what the price difference is from. I'm gonna have to buy a Canon. That's one thing I want to explain. The only reason I shoot Nikon is because all my film cameras were Nikon. They came from my grandfather. So I had all the lenses, and we kind of discussed how all the lenses are swappable since 1959. I think I had to put that correction in the last video. But yeah, so I am going to have to buy a Canon, I have to buy a Sony, I have to buy a Fujifilm. That way I can give a fair review to everything. Basically, if you put a camera in my hand, I'm going to shoot with it. I just enjoy and love taking photographs. So yeah, the Youngnou, I'm going to go over some specs with you. Again, this isn't sponsored. You can probably tell by my subscriber count, and thank you guys who have subscribed. But yeah, this isn't a sponsored thing, and I just wanted to go over it because when I was looking into this lens originally, I didn't find much information on it. There were some videos, but not a whole lot of real in-depth videos. So I'm going to go over some of the specifications with you. So the lens structure is 5 sets, 6 pieces, and that's how many pieces of glass are within the lens itself. Again, the minimum aperture is f/16, the maximum is f1.8, which makes it a fast lens. It's a pretty versatile lens. It is a prime lens, so you can't zoom in or zoom out with it. You actually have to physically walk forward or back. That being said, you do have a minimum focusing distance of 0.45. I have run into issues with that. That's about 1.5 feet or something for us Americans in imperial measurements. I've run into some issues with that where I want to get really in close and it doesn't work as a macro lens. It's really, that 0.45 meters isn't that great, but again, it's a $72 lens that we're really doing something wonderful with. The maximum magnification and sight range is 0.15x by 160 by 240 millimeter when the distance is at your 0.45 meters, your closest in there. The filter diameter for your UV filters or anything like that you want to use is 58 millimeters around. So it's actually, I'm going to grab a different camera. This is a film camera. That's actually the length around here is 58 millimeters and the lens itself is 50 millimeters. The lens is super light. That is one thing I do like about it. I've said that before. It does feel cheap, but it is super light at 203 grams. Hiking with this lens on the camera, not an issue whatsoever. It's not bad. I can hike around all day with my 5100. I haven't hiked the 5300 yet. With the 5100 on it, with the 50 millimeter lens, and get some wonderful shots, and it's not a problem at all. It's not anything backbreaking. It is an AFS lens, which means the autofocus is inside the lens itself instead of having to have one inside the camera. So yeah, I would have to say, yeah, a solid 7 out of 10 stars. Best bang for your buck though. Really it is. $72, $42 for the Canon. Again, I'm gonna have to buy one of each now just so I can do a side-by-side comparison. And then I'll have to do a side-by-side comparison when I actually get the Nikon. So thank you guys again so very much. Like, comment, subscribe. I think there's a bell notification. I hear that on a lot of videos lately. Hit the bell so you get a notification when I upload, because you won't always. Again, not sponsored, but thank you guys so very much for joining me tonight. If you have any video suggestions, anything you want me to go over, any piece of equipment, any lighting techniques, 1, 2, 3, 4, even 5 light techniques, color gels, anything like that, just let me know in the comments below and I will try to work on it. Thank you so much. You guys have a great night. P.S. Excuse me. P.S. All the models, I will, for now on, link down below. I'm going to link their social media profiles. That way, if you're in the Colorado area or you want to see their other work with other photographers, not just my work on my portfolio, you're more than welcome to. All of them are working models. They usually have a pretty free schedule. You'd have to contact them about shooting with them. But yeah, so Jessica Thompson, Arianna, Steanos, I think is how you pronounce it, and Valerie Hastings. Thank you guys again so very much. Have a good one.